Welcome back to Tide Pod on the YouTube home of Tide Illustrated. Jack Knowlton and Tony Tsoukalis recapping Alabama's 103-87 win over the Vanderbilt Commodores on Tuesday night. We're going to look ahead to LSU on the weekend as well, Tony. But another win for the Tide. No Tuesday scaries this time for Alabama. Obviously, a week ago, losing to Ole Miss. That game feels pretty far in the rear view now after, of course, the game against Kentucky over the weekend, and now a win over the Vanderbilt Commodores, a good Vanderbilt Commodores team too that had come in with a decent record in SEC play thus far. I think the best place to start with looking back at this game, given our kind of 2 cents, had a little bit of time to think about it, recap it. I rewatched it today, enjoyed that. The place, obviously, to start, Tony, the bench for Alabama. The Tide bench outscoring Vanderbilt's 52 or outscoring their starters, 52-51 in this game. And the man of the hour, Mo Dioubate, Mr. Off-Road, the off-road package that Nate Oats said they implemented this week. He actually, I think, said they didn't even use much of it. Showing off his offense, 22 points in this game. He had a double. It was Grant Nelson's stat line. 8 for 9 from the field. He had a double-double with 10 rebounds. Couple of blocks and a steal as well. Shot 8 of 9 from the field, 6 of 9 from the free throw line as well. So pretty decent showing there. How impressed were you with Mo finding kind of a new level offensively? We know about the blue collar stuff. He won the hard hat against Kentucky, but jumped to a new level, set the tone for Alabama's bench, made a huge difference in the Tide winning their 5th game in SEC play here.
Yeah, you could kind of see it coming with how he played against Kentucky, and so that there was a storm kind of brewing there, and so, but I don't think anyone expected him to be this good. Look, he is playing starter level good. The fact that Alabama has him off the bench is a real luxury. Him and Aden Holloway as well. I mean, those two guys are super subs for Alabama, and you saw that in this game. And that's absolutely scary when you're coming in and you're playing Alabama and they can have guys like Mo Dioubate and Aden Holloway off the bench. I mean, these guys are good enough to be starting at SEC programs. Mo Dioubate is a serious player. It's every time we talk about him, I go back to thinking about sometime during the offseason, we were thinking, is this guy even going to play because his roster's so stacked? And it's like, how could this guy not play now? I mean, he's one of the most important players on the team. But yeah, he's everywhere. He is the quintessential, Nate Oats player. I mean, if he could shoot the 3 more, maybe, but he's in the same vein as a Herb Jones level of just everything that that Nate Oats wants in a player. And I don't know how what the future holds for Mo Dioubate, but if he sticks around, probably 2 more years, I think he could leave with that same kind of, fan appreciation. I mean, he already has a ton of appreciation, but I think he could have that same following that Herb Jones has, because he's just that kind of player, and he means so much to the program in so many different kind of ways, and just he does the little things too that really help you. And it seems forever ago that we used to only have to talk about that Grand Canyon game, and it's almost to the point where I was like, oh, it's just one game, but now he does that kind of stuff all the time. And look, if they're going to make a run, I think Modi's going to be a huge part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad you brought up the Herb Jones comp, because I wanted to mention that as well. Heard on the broadcast they said they see a little Draymond Green in him too, which I also kind of liked. He definitely plays with that fire. Hopefully he doesn't ever punch any of his teammates in the face. That would be a certain issue, but
hopefully he doesn't do a lot of the things that Draymond Green does, but
yeah, some of the antics, if you will, but certainly on the court in terms of that engine, especially, kind of being a little bit quote unquote undersized to guard like centers. He's got that 6'8" kind of sturdy build, but he plays a lot bigger than he is. And to me, as much as we saw him in attack mode offensively, and I think to go back to the free throw thing, Nate Oats made a really good point after the game. His free throw is up. I think it was something like 47%. He didn't shoot too many last year just because of how little he played. I think he was like a 47% free throw shooter. That's up closer to 70 this year. Nate Oats talked about, when you lift that free throw percentage, you're more willing to go in attack mode and go downhill because you trust that you're going to get points at the line. So we've seen that jump. But for me, the biggest play he made in this game, the most Mo Dioubate play too, he comes down, he blocks a shot on one end, and then off the ensuing inbound pass steals it, then dives on the floor, somehow gets the ball to Chris Youngblood, who gets fouled and goes to the free throw line. They showed Nate Oats on the sideline just, getting hyped, pumping his fist for him in a very sharp blue coat, by the way. I was a fan of Nate Oats as a coat for this game on a side note, but that to me was the most, Mo D play in that game. It's just he never switches off the blue collar stuff, like you said, even on a night where he's scoring. And yeah, I mean, didn't attempt a 3-pointer. There's no need to with him. He can just get downhill, goes in attack mode. You wrote about after the Kentucky game attacking the seals, attacking the mismatches. That's what Mohamed Dioubate does. And you're right. It's a total asset for Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. 8 of 9. And you talked about the free throws. I think that was something he struggled. I don't have the numbers in front of me against Kentucky, but I think he was a little bit rocky there. He was 6 of 9 against Vanderbilt, so that you'll take that from him. 8 of 9 from the floor, so he was great. In a double, career high 22 points, 10 rebounds. What a great performance from him. Really can't ask more from him. 22 points in 23 minutes. I mean, geez, that's that'll play every day.
And then the box plus minus is plus 26. I mean, he continues to dominate that category too. So just an absolute career day for Mohamed Dioubate. And then you mentioned it, and I'd like, more of your take on him. The other guy who we're a little bit more used to him scoring because he's had double figures, I think, in like 8 of the last 9 games for Alabama. It's Aden Holloway, who matched Diabate's 22 points with 22 of his own, 8 of 11 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. Chipped in with 4 rebounds in this game as well, and had a block. That was his first career block since his first game in college, which was against Baylor for Auburn last season. That was a fun stat I looked up just because I was like, when is the last time Aden Holloway got a block? But another guy, Tony, who has just, he's benefited from the freedom, and he said it as much. Last season, he was more restricted kind of in the shots he could take, and the green light he's gotten from Nate Oats has paid off this year in the in-state rival, as opposed to what it was last year with Auburn.
Former Auburn Tiger, now good. He's been really consistent, 4 of 6 from beyond the arc, and he's a guy that has that nice little floater as well. So if there's one person that Nate Oats doesn't mind shooting that mid-range shot, or at least shouldn't mind shooting that mid-range shot, it's him. He's so smooth with everything he does. Look, I would make the argument that Aden Holloway should be in the starting lineup, and I keep on jumping to the next player, but Jarin Stevenson was also done pretty well, and I have to be the first one to I've been the big, I guess, hater on Jarin Stevenson, but normally I'd be sitting here calling out and talking about how Aden Holloway needs to be in the starting lineup. But Jarin Stevenson also had a good game. But you're right. Holloway did everything. He even had some. He's not necessarily somebody you think about maybe on the defensive side of the ball, but he did have that block. He's kind of everywhere, and he's a guy that kind of opens up the floor for everyone else with his shooting ability.
Yeah, and it's weird because we talk so much. I mean, Nate Oats said after he shot 19 threes against South Dakota State that he should have shot 22. And so you think of it as like, oh, it's a green light. He's going to shoot it every time down the floor. And yet every time I watch him, I feel like he picks his shots really strategically and smart. I think he knows when he's open and to take a 3, but then he knows when to attack a closeout and go get a floater. He knows what type of shot inside the arc is best for him, depending on where the defense is, all that stuff. He just has really good scoring instincts and a decent kind of finishing package around the rim. I don't think he's Mark Sears or LeBaron Philon good in that regard, but I mean, he's just a really smart, crafty, kind of savvy scorer. And it's a lot more than just, oh, Alabama lets him shot chuck. Like he kind of knows how to get a bucket, plain and simple is I guess what I'm trying to say. I really like Aden Holloway and just watching his game. It's so smooth. And I'm glad you brought up Jarin Stevenson because we could touch on him. 10 points. I predicted in my column last week that he'd score 10 or more against either Kentucky or Vanderbilt. So thank you, Jarin, for living up to that one. 4 of 6 shooting, had 7 rebounds in this game as well. Did have a couple of turnovers, didn't have a block or a steal on defense, but he to me is really starting to turn a corner and find just that little bit of upside. If you can get anywhere from, to me, with how good this offense is, if you can get 7 to 10 points from Jarin Stevenson a game, if you can creep up to close to that tally, like you're going to take that all day long, because I think he has still continued to be this sort of upside defender for Alabama, and now also kind of finding the groove scoring. The big thing for me with him, there was one example against Kentucky. I remember he drove into the paint, had one bigger defender on him who sort of had an okay position, and just kind of stopped, looked around, hesitated, and passed out of it. And I think it led to a miss for Alabama. That didn't happen against Vanderbilt. He was in attack mode. He went up right away. He wasn't afraid to go up in contact and test himself against a one-on-one defender. And hey, when a 6'10" guy does that, it worked more times than not against Vanderbilt. Funny how that goes. So I thought that was a good evolution from Jarin Stevenson.
I think it's down to my bullying, Jack. I think he just needed to get bullied by me, and that's I pushed him into doing it. So I'll take the credit for that.
Okay, fair enough.
I won't say I always believed in Jarin Stevenson, because I'm not sure I did, but yeah, no, he's a much better player, and you can just see it. I mean, I think it's easier to see the growth on defense, but yeah, the shots are starting to fall a little bit more on offense. I think what you're seeing is, like you said, the defense and doing well in that regard has led to more confidence, and that's just going to raise both levels. I think that there's a lot of X factors on this team. I mean, that really everybody we've mentioned so far could be an X factor in terms of winning Alabama a title, and that's what's so exciting about this team. Is you've got Jarin Stevenson, you've got Aden Holloway, you've got Mo Dioubate. Those aren't the guys that you think about when it comes to winning Alabama basketball games, but they all can, and they're all getting better, and that's an exciting thing for Alabama. Because if all three of those guys continue to get better, I mean, you still don't even have Darian Reed back. I mean, I think you might get him back for LSU, but you're starting to see these guys that are kind of role players or supplementary players really step in and kind of elevate their game. And I mean, Alabama is going to be even more of a juggernaut if this continues.
For sure. And you have the guys like Holloway and Chris Youngblood, and of course Mo Dioubate, who kind of know their roles. And then when you look even further down the line, I wanted to give him a shout out because I think he deserves one. A guy like Aden Sherrell, who I don't think is going to be, I don't think he's in that X factor category this season, but a guy who in 12 minutes grabbed a couple rebounds, I think, or had 5 rebounds, a couple blocks as well. Like he looked good. I think he's really promising, for the future of this team. He's kind of made the most of his minutes. So you have kind of a couple levels of bench, if you will, where you have these X factors. You have guys that are making a difference right now, and then you throw a guy like Sherrell in there. I mean, there's no reason why he can't contend for big time minutes next season.
I'll tell you what, though, Alabama needs to maybe have him have less confidence in his shooting ability. We talked about Jarin having more confidence. I think somebody needs to tell Aden Sherrell, like, hey, man, maybe cool it with the threes. Like, what is his percentage? Because I know everyone keeps on saying he can shoot them, but
he made a couple early on in non-con.
I'll believe it when I see it. He is shooting a cool 17.4% from three. So that's not necessarily what they need from it. Like, they don't need him to be a 3-point shooter. I don't know. I guess if it's open, it hasn't hurt Alabama, but I do not have a lot of confidence when that man shoots a three. I love Aden Sherrell too. I'm not trying to clown on him or anything, but yeah, maybe cool it on the confidence a little bit. It's good to see that he's never afraid to shoot, though.
I mean, everyone has the green light on a Nate Oats team, so there you go. But yeah, I think he's one who showed promise. I thought he had some really nice moments, on the glass and kind of as just a playmaker a little bit. Had an assist to Aden Holloway as well. That was a nice dribble handoff that he worked on offense. So bright future ahead.
Minutes had to be. I mean, that had to be a somewhat of a high. It felt like he was on the court a lot longer.
Yeah, it was definitely up there. He made.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Yeah, he had 2 minutes against Kentucky, 3 against Ole Miss. Yeah, I think 13 that was a season. No, he had 17 against in the opener when they blew out Central Arkansas. But yeah, Since the games have started really mattering, that this has been this was his longest time out on the court.
Yeah, it's a good sign that he is able to play extended minutes against SEC competition, even if it is, Vanderbilt who Alabama overmatched. But, it's good that you can throw him out there, and he did not look out of place. He doesn't look not ready for that level. So it's just about getting him some more reps, and he's going to be one. I think I'm excited for him for the future. Kind of visiting, we talked a lot about the bench. Yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on this starting lineup because, Nate Oats wasn't all that pleased after the game. He kind of talked about wanting to see more from the starters. They went down 7-2 early in this game, maybe bringing back some vibes of last Tuesday off the jump in those first couple of minutes. They gave up a 9-3 run to start the second half. So it wasn't the most promising. What did you make of that? And then I want to talk about one guy in particular that Nate Oats talked about, but the starters not exactly setting the tone. And Nate Oats talked a little bit again about that leadership side that we heard, of course, after Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of puzzling because you do have. I mean they set the tone well against Kentucky, so I mean
Right.
it's not like they can't, and um, I think that Alabama's got good leadership on this team. It might just be a case of just starting cold. I don't know. One of the things that we were talking about beforehand is do you shake up the starting lineup a little bit just to kind of maybe fix that? I mean, do you put in a Aden Holloway for LeBaron? Just just to shake things up on the starting lineup. I don't know. Maybe does that help a little bit? it- we'll just have to. Yeah, I guess you kind of have to see. I wouldn't be too worried about it. The falling the the fall apart late, where they kind of let that run in the second half. That's more concerning. I think that had to do more with just letting your foot off the gas. And that's something that you just don't want to see. I think that it's not something that's was ever gonna hurt him in this game, but it's something that will hurt him later on, and it's something that can catch you. Um, when you get into the tournament play, whether it's SEC tournament or it's the NCAA tournament, it's one and done. And if you do something stupid and throw away a lead, and you could throw away your whole season by letting your foot off the gas. So you just can't do that. And so that's something that Nate Oats is going to have to fix. But once again, I mean, I think it's almost good to have those kind of lessons sprinkled in throughout the season so that Nate Oats can keep on kind of like jarring at his players and keeping in the right headspace so they don't get too overconfident. I'm not worried about the leadership or the starting the contingent on this team. You might tinker with it a little bit, but I think there's not some big overarching problem there. I don't think.
Yeah, I wonder if it maybe becomes a situation where tinkering it ends up creating more problems than it solves. I don't know if, if it's just down to lighting a fire under these guys. I mean, like you said, you saw the response against Kentucky. I mean, Grant Nelson was excellent in that game. Clifford Amore was good in that game. Mark Sears has been excellent in every game. But, you saw them kind of respond after what I'm sure was a hard couple of days of practice after Ole Miss. So, you just kind of have to see that lock in again. I do want to touch on the defensive stuff because that was another thing. Mark Sears said they were given kind of a maturity test, is what he called it. This week practice the day before the game ran long. Nate Oats said that as much. He said that's why he was late to his press appearance because he was trying to make sure the guys didn't replicate that performance. The result obviously didn't get replicated, but he used the word disgusted again. He went 2 for 2 on Tuesday pressers with that, or post game Tuesday pressers with that, because he talked about Alabama in the second half. They allowed Vanderbilt to average 1.3 points per possession. That was after they were at a 0.87 in the first half. A lot of letdown. Vanderbilt, I believe, shot. I have to look again. 11 was 11 for 26 for the game. In the second half, it was 10 for 19 from three, 52% from three. And I went back and rewatched it, and there is going to be some ugly tape to dissect. A lot of miscommunication on defense. They, allowed Tyler Nickel, this guard for Vanderbilt. He went 5 for 7 from three in the second half, scored 17 points. He had two wide open ones. One of them was an and 1-3 that Chris Youngblood fouled him on because he was late on the closeout because he tried to switch, and there was just a miscommunication. So, they did run into some kind of defensive miscommunications. Overall, again, it didn't end up affecting the game. But what did you make of Nate Oats' his grade? He said he overall graded out to a C- because they were an A in the first half and then an F in the second half.
Yeah, we got to get him a thesaurus if I can talk. Yeah, we got to get me the pronunciation. But I think that that's probably fair. I mean, they did when he was asked about the maturity. I mean, I think they came out great, and then yeah, they just let their foot off the gas, and that's just what we were talking about. That as a head coach, you're going to hate that, and you're going to get mad about that, and you're going to probably say things like disgusted because I think Nate Oats knows that that's going to eventually come back to haunt them. It's kind of what happened. It's not kind of, it's what happened against Ole Miss. So like, I think that it's probably frustrating to know that that's not totally washed out of the program yet. After the come to Jesus moment, and then you seem like you had that redemption against Kentucky, and then you handled Vanderbilt really well in the first half, and then all of a sudden, like, here we are again. And I mean, I think for a while there, Vanderbilt was like within striking range.
They got it down to 8 at one point. I mean,
Yeah,
they
I mean, with
cut
like
it
what,
down.
3 minutes or something to
Yep.
go. I mean, I still didn't at that point feel like it was going to be anything, but right, that's just got to be frustrating. I think it's just something, like I said, it gives him one more thing to harp on them during practice. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's almost like, getting a vaccine or getting a shot. Like if you have these things that you do that you can kind of learn from and kind of fight against, and you're ready for it, it's not going to hit you when you're not, like, you'll have dealt with it by the time you need to deal with it when it counts. And so I don't know if that made sense, but you know how vaccines work. So I think that it's not encouraging to see, but at the same time, it is encouraging that it didn't cost Alabama. It's another learning moment for them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like you said, it's you can't replicate Ole Miss, in the NCAA tournament, or your season will be over. So, you do have to have those moments, and thankfully, this offense at times is good enough to propel them, but Alabama certainly can't exclusively lean on that. Just like, you can't expect your bench to bail you out when your starters don't start the game well. You got to have, some response. So there is still plenty of learning moments overall. Didn't come back to haunt them, but it will, of course, against better competition, which Alabama is going to play plenty of in the back half of SEC play. And then, of course, everyone they play in the postseason. This team currently 46th in adjusted defensive efficiency still. So if you want a reminder, it still has come a long way because they were in the 100s last season. So overall, I think the defense has taken a leap from a year ago, but it is going to have to kind of be consistent. It's kind of about finishing on that end, not buckling when you have a big lead. That's continued to be kind of a theme. Wanted to get your quick take, Tony. Of course, a guy we didn't talk about, the other 20-point scorer in this game, Mark Sears. He had 21, 10 of 13 from the free throw line. That'll be very refreshing. And 21 points on only 2 3-point attempts. Of course, past 2,500 career points, another milestone for Sears. He's the only player in an Alabama uniform to ever do that. Nate Oats obviously had some good words for him. I liked Mark's quote too about it, where he's like, the game is finally given back, or like paying you back, for your hard work. I thought that was a pretty cool quote from him, but figured it's an opportunity. Your thoughts on Mark Sears? I know you've covered this team for a while. What has he meant for the growth of Alabama basketball as a program? Obviously under Nate Oats here in the last couple of seasons.
I mean, he's really the face of, this new age of Alabama being great. I mean, I think with leading them to the Final Four and then now coming back, I mean, he really has a chance to be the greatest Alabama player of all time. I think you really got to make a case for him to be that. So he's kind of, to me, there's a few people you can say this about. You could say this about Brendan Miller, even though he's only here 1 year. Like, when you look back at, like, if Nate Oats wins the title, and if Alabama becomes, that kind of like similar to what the football team did, obviously not going, it's so hard to do it in basketball. You're not going to do the same thing Nick Saban did. But when you start looking at the players that, built that dynasty for Alabama in football, you looked at it like a Mark Ingram or a Julio Jones. That's kind of like how I see Mark Sears, like he is the foundation of like this next wave of Alabama basketball. There's been a few people before him. I think obviously Colin Sexton was big, Kyra Lewis, but like, I think Mark and what they've been able to do with him, I think he's going to be one of those big faces where when, hopefully Nate Oats is here for a while. And when you look back, I think he's going to be on that Mount Rushmore for sure. And probably the first face you put on there, just because he's just meant so much. And I think it's cool that he's an Alabama kid as well. It just makes it even more special. And he's a good guy. He's been a great representation of this program. He's an easy person to root for. He's been a leader on this team. So it's good to see him get these milestones. And like I said, at the end of this season, we might be talking about him being the best player to ever suit up in crimson and white.
Yeah, I think that's a super fair assessment when you look. I mean, Alabama's obviously had some historically great players, but you're right. In terms of how he's changed and evolved the program as a whole and his impact, that definitely can't be overstated. You're right. He's not often a man of too many words. I mean, he puts his head down and works, and like you're right, it's a very easy player to root for. I do love the state of Alabama, narrative. I love that him and Phylon being both in the starting lineup. You have that home state connection there. I think that's an important thing. Obviously, Chris Youngblood being from Tuscaloosa originally too is very cool. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, he became the single season leading scorer last year. Obviously, on a long tournament run helps with that. But they don't get there without him, and they're not going to get back there without him. And he was great. So yeah, good to see him honored in that moment. But like Nate Oats said, he's going to just be back in the gym the next day. I think they had an off day on Thursday, and said he will definitely be in getting shots up. So might just be another number to Mark Sears for right now, but I'm sure he'll look back and be very appreciative too. So good to see that from him. Had a good game as well. He never, and it is, I like what Nate said too. I feel like this year, maybe more than years past, I always look at the box score. I'm like, Mark Sears just has 19 points all of a sudden. After you're like, this kind of been a quiet Mark Sears game. And you're just like, oh, never mind. He's got 20 again.
He'll hit them in bunches too. I mean,
Yep.
it seems like sometimes he'll be quiet, then he'll hit, back-to-back threes, and all of us, well, that's 6 points right there, and then 2 minutes later he'll get another 5 points, so yeah.
He represents Alabama's ability to go on runs, the spurt ability of this team, which was also popped up. They had a couple big 12-0-1 run, kind of separated them in the first half. Never really looked back from that. So a good win for Alabama over Vanderbilt, and now they're looking to kind of complete this 2-game homestand with another one on Saturday. They face LSU at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. You can watch it on SEC Network. The Tigers, Tony, rough start for them in SEC play. They're 1-4, 12-6 on the year. They have played Vanderbilt, Missouri, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and A&M. They have lost to all of those besides Arkansas, who they beat 78-74 last week. This team, I'll just give a few numbers. I kind of predicted a better grade for Alabama on that maturity / defense test that we're apparently giving out now. I'm kind of forecasting that LSU is ranked 100th in adjusted offensive efficiency and 264th in three-point percentage. They shoot about 31% on the season. Player out to watch, I'll point out, Cam Carter, their leading scorer, is averaging about 17, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, does kind of everything for them. What are you thinking when you look at this LSU team, this game here on Saturday? And can Alabama build on this win over Vandy and go 2-0 before they head to Stark Vegas, of course, next week?
It's really going to come down to maturity, because I can't really think of a reason why LSU would win unless Alabama just doesn't come out and play. It's going to have to be, the Ole Miss effort plus more, because like I thought, the way Alabama came against Ole Miss, you're not going to win very many games playing like that. But like even then, I feel like they could maybe beat an LSU team with that. They're going to have a lot of things go wrong. But if they come out and play the way that they should, this should be an easy win. I think you look at this game and you first of all, you want to see that they take it seriously, that they don't let their foot off the gas, that they just put LSU away early, because that's what they should be able to do. And they just handle it like a number 4 team playing, a bottom dweller at home. Like that's what this game should look like, But, you just can't look ahead. You can't get overconfident. I think there'll be a couple of things too that will kind of maybe jazz them up. It is a Saturday game, so I was a little bit worried. I was sick, so I wasn't at the Vanderbilt game, but I was worried maybe from an Alabama's perspective that like it was cold, maybe people wouldn't be there. It seemed like people were there.
It filled out. It filled out
The
decently
energy
well.
wasn't a problem that one. The energy should be, this is not a huge matchup, but the energy for this Saturday game should be pretty big because Alabama's debuting in New Jersey.
Yep.
The white jerseys that they had last year with the block A, this is essentially just the red version of that, right?
Yep. They just
Yeah,
flipped
so
it
they just
inside
flipped
out,
it.
basically.
So they'll have that. I think that kind of like as corny as it sounds, like I think that's going to maybe give them the boost that if they were otherwise going to be a little flat. I think just being in the new threads, having that's going to get the fans juiced. It's going to maybe get the players a little bit juiced because they're excited to play in these, and maybe they come out hot. That's really the only way I could see LSU causing any problems is if Alabama just comes out super flat. I just don't see it. I think there's not a lot of matchups. If you look at the way LSU plays, I don't really know if there's an avenue to beat Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're going to find out right away what kind of Alabama team you're getting and how the game is probably going to go. I am excited to see the throwback. So I'll ask you the better question, Tony. You look at the SEC standings now. Alabama 5-1 in conference, alone in second place because Ole Miss maybe beating Alabama is a little bit of a curse. They lost 2 straight, so they're 4-2 now. Dropped off, had a heartbreaker against Texas A&M, and then lost the Egg Bowl of basketball to Mississippi State, who of course Alabama plays after LSU. And Alabama staring down this 17-1 Auburn side that's 5-0 in conference, but a game against the Volunteers on Saturday that could be interesting. Auburn going to be without Janai Broome again for that one. Barely beat Georgia on the road by 2. It is a good Georgia team that they played. Do you have a hot take for us? Are we coming into Sunday morning with an even Stevens standing in SEC play between Bama and
Well,
Auburn?
it won't be even Stevens because Auburn didn't play in the midweek, so
You're right. Yeah, so Alabama's
Alabama
one game
will
ahead.
either overtake or be still be a game and a half or a game
Half
back,
game.
a half game. Sorry, a half game back, or maybe they'll be a game and a half back if they somehow lose to LSU. That would be tragic for Alabama, but I think it's a possibility. I think I'd still take Auburn. Auburn hasn't looked like it's crazy, but it doesn't seem like losing Janai Broome has been as bad as what anyone thought it would be for them, and it's testament to how deep they are as well. I'm just not a believer in this Tennessee team. If they played Florida, or if they played somebody that I was a little bit higher on, or if they even if they're playing Tennessee on the road, I might take the upset there, but I don't see Tennessee going into Auburn and winning in that game. It could happen, and it'd be pretty cool for Alabama to after this run to be in first place heading to Mississippi State next week. But I just don't see it. I think that the better thing for Alabama is, or the thing that Alabama can hold on to is they've kind of provided some separation for that second place, with other teams falling. Alabama's gotten a hold of second place at the moment, so they can control their destiny with Auburn. If they continue to win, then they'll get a chance to play Auburn themselves, and I think that's going to be a classic matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a classic no matter where they're lined up in the SEC standings. Those teams are just both so good. I agree with you. Neville Arena is going to be a tough place to play for everybody. I'm not a super big Tennessee believer either, so I think Auburn will get it done in that game. But it is nice to see Alabama's right there challenging, right behind the Tigers, and got to take care of business against LSU. But the more you win, the more pressure you put on, and the closer we get to February 15th, which is going to be maybe a banner Saturday for Alabama basketball, depending on how that game goes. The iBob. Any final thoughts, takeaways, Tony, from Alabama's maybe last 2 games, just the run that they're on? It feels like Ole Miss is pretty firmly in the rear view, and obviously you dominate LSU from start to finish. I think correct some of the things against Vanderbilt. You put it even more and you say this team has fully turned a corner heading into a pretty big run. I'll throw another prediction too here. I mean, they have a good chance to go 5-0 and be 10-1 heading into that Auburn game.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of tough. I still, I'll be in Mobile, so I won't be able to go down there to Mississippi State, but you'll be there. That's going to be a tough game. What is it, next Tuesday?
Yep.
And then you've got Georgia at home, and then you got those 2 road trips to Arkansas and Texas. Those are both seem winnable, but once again, they're SEC road games. I mean, look, all those games are winnable. So you're right. I mean, we could be sitting with Alabama 21-3 heading against Auburn, who's 21 or 22-1 or whatever. I don't know what the records would be, but yeah, that could be insane. I don't think Alabama fans. I think I wrote a whole column about don't count your chickens before they hatch. I think this is a good example of that. You saw Arkansas come back and win at home. I think that could be a galvanizing win for them. So that might be a tougher game. Yeah, it's a possibility though. I mean, I think Alabama's just got to take it one game at a time. The LSU game, I think this Mississippi State game will be a tough one, but you start building up some momentum and they're going to be tough to beat. It goes back to what we said earlier too. If you continue to get the production from people like Mo Dioubate, from Aden Holloway, from Jarin Stevenson, it's tough to see. It's tough to see this team losing. So, yeah, it's definitely a possibility that they go 5-0. And, I mean, at that point, is Alabama and Auburn 1-2 in the nation? I don't know.
Maybe.
I guess Duke would have to lose. I mean, it'd be tough, but yeah, I'd have to look at the schedule, but that would be insane.
Will hopefully be a banner college game day appearance, assuming they aren't dumb and pick somewhere else to go for that game. So, yeah, we won't look too far ahead either. I guess we can. That's kind of our jobs. But Alabama basketball we'll have to be locking in, of course, on LSU first and foremost. Like I said, that game 7:30 p.m. Saturday on SEC Network. We'll have plenty of coverage of it. So subscribe to Tide Illustrated for that. Subscribe here on the YouTube. Drop us a like and give us a follow on Spotify if you're listening to the show. And yeah, we'll have a recap for that and look ahead to Mississippi State as well. Going to be a fun one over in Starkville, Alabama against Mississippi State. So we'll preview that on the next show as well. So until that time, see you soon.